When I first moved to Rainwood, Oregon in 2022, I was desperate to find somewhere cheap to stay. College had drained my savings, and I just started a night shift job at a hardware store. Scrolling through Craigslist late one night, I found an ad. Room for rent, $300 per month. Must like dogs. Basement level. Private entrance. Sounded perfect. I messaged right away and got a quick reply from a man named Chris. He said he worked nights too and mostly kept to himself. That was fine with me. I just needed a place to sleep during the day. The next morning I drove to see the house. A modest two-story place with faded green siding and a sagging porch. The yard was overgrown with weeds. A large black lab barked from the backyard fence until Chris stepped out and shushed it. Chris was mid-30s, wiry, with deep-set eyes and a pale complexion. He smiled too quickly, as though trying to seem welcoming. He showed me the basement entrance, a narrow concrete path down the side of the house, leading to a dented white door. Inside, the basement smelled faintly of mildew and earth, but it wasn't terrible. There was a small bedroom with a low ceiling, a kitchenette, and a tiny bathroom with an old shower stall. A single overhead bulb buzzed like a trapped fly. I asked about the noise from upstairs since I needed to sleep during the day. Chris assured me, "I'm quiet, barely home except at night. You won't even know I'm here." The price was too good to pass up, so I moved in that weekend. At first, everything was fine. 3 nights after I settled in, I was lying in bed scrolling my phone around 2 a.m. when I heard footsteps overhead. Slow, deliberate, like someone pacing the kitchen. That wasn't strange. Chris lived upstairs. But then I heard the sound again from inside the basement hallway, soft but closer. I got up, opened my bedroom door, and looked down the hall toward the laundry room. Nothing. The air was still cool against my bare arms. I convinced myself it was the dog moving around above me and went back to bed. But over the next week, the noises kept happening. Faint scraping, sometimes a low murmur as if someone was whispering too close to the floor. Twice I woke to the sound of the basement door, the one leading to the backyard, clicking shut. I started locking my bedroom door at night. One evening Chris stopped me as I came home from work. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes. "You hear anything weird at night?" he asked. My stomach tightened. "Like what?" He scratched his neck. "Just noises. I think rats got in. Been setting traps in the laundry room." I nodded, trying to sound casual, but the word rats made the hair on my arms prickle. That night, I lay awake listening for the snap of traps. Instead, I heard a dragging sound against the far wall of the basement. Slow, heavy, like furniture being moved inch by inch. By the 3rd week, a foul, sweet rot odor seeped into the hallway. It was strongest near the door to a small storage room at the back of the basement. A door I'd never seen open. I asked Chris about it the next evening. He avoided my eyes and said, "Yeah, a pipe probably leaked. I'll bleach it." But the smell lingered, and bleach never came. The dog upstairs had started whining at night, low and anxious. One night after my shift, I came home around 3:30 a.m. to find the backyard gate swinging open. The dog wasn't barking, just standing near the fence, ears pinned back. As I walked down the concrete path to the basement door, I noticed muddy shoe prints leading away from the storage room's window. They looked fresh. Inside, the smell was stronger than ever. The hallway light flickered as I passed, casting shadows that seemed to twitch along the walls. Something in me snapped. I grabbed a flashlight from my car and went straight to the storage room door. It wasn't locked, just stuck, as if something behind it resisted being opened. I pushed hard until it gave way with a sharp creak. The beam of my flashlight swept across the room and landed on a sleeping bag laid out against the far wall, half covered by a dirty tarp. Next to it sat a small metal bowl, dried food stuck to the edges, and a pile of clothes folded neatly, too neatly for a storage room. But what made my breath catch was the dark stains spread across the concrete floor near the sleeping bag. It wasn't old water damage. It looked like something that had soaked and dried, leaving a brown, crusty outline. I backed out slowly, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The next day, I waited until evening, then confronted Chris upstairs. "Who's been staying in the basement storage room?" I asked. He blinked at me, then forced a chuckle. "No one. You're imagining things. There's a sleeping bag, clothes, and a smell like something died down there," I said, voice shaking. His smile dropped. For a long moment he just stared, then muttered, "You shouldn't go in there." That was all he said before turning away. I went straight back downstairs, locked my bedroom door, and started packing my suitcase. Around 1 a.m. that night, as I shoved clothes into my bag, the basement door creaked open. I froze, listening. Slow footsteps moved down the hallway outside my room. Not Chris's quick stride, but something slower, dragging. The footsteps paused outside my bedroom door. The doorknob turned once, twice, testing the lock. I held my breath in the dark, clutching my phone, ready to dial 911. After what felt like minutes, the steps retreated toward the storage room. A door clicked shut. That was enough for me. I waited until dawn, grabbed my half-packed bag, and bolted. A week later, I drove back to return the keys in daylight. The house was empty. A "for rent" sign leaned against the porch. A neighbor saw me and came over. When I asked if she knew where Chris went, her face hardened. "Chris moved out fast," she said. "Police were here 2 nights after you left. Something about the basement." I didn't ask what they found. I didn't want to know. Even now, I can still smell that sweet rot odor in my memory, and I still hear the sound of that doorknob turning in the dark. Sometimes I wonder who or what had been living in the storage room all along, and whether Chris knew the whole time. I was 19 when I learned how fast a normal night could twist into something unforgettable. Back then, I lived in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn Heights with my best friend Eli. The rent was cheap because the building was old. Cracked paint on the hallway walls, one buzzing ceiling light near the stairs that flickered every few minutes. It was early winter. The city felt gray, the kind of damp cold that slides under your clothes. I worked the evening shift at a pizza shop and usually got home around 11:30 p.m. That night, I got home late, closer to 1 a.m., because the delivery car broke down. The hallway was empty when I climbed the stairs. I could smell the faint sourness of boiled cabbage from somewhere above. Our apartment was on the 2nd floor, 2B. Eli had friends over earlier to play cards, so when I turned my key, I expected laughter, maybe the TV on. Instead, the living room was dark. The only light came from a street lamp glowing through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor. I called out, "Eli," no answer. I tossed my jacket on the couch and saw a note on the table, scribbled on the back of a grocery receipt. "Went to get smokes. Be back soon." I sighed, made myself instant noodles, and ate while scrolling my phone. It was about 1:40 a.m. when I heard the hallway door slam downstairs. Sharp, echoing up the stairwell. I figured it was Eli coming back. But then came loud voices, deep male voices arguing. The words were muffled at first, then clearer as footsteps stomped up the stairs. "Told you I don't have it. That's bull. You had it yesterday." The arguing stopped right outside our door. I froze with the fork halfway to my mouth. A heavy thud rattled the hallway. Someone was shoved into the wall. A man groaned, then coughed. Through the thin wood of the door, I heard a shaky voice say, "Man, it's $15. I'll get you the rest Friday." A deeper voice replied, low and angry, "You think I'm stupid? You think you can just duck me for $15? There was another thump, followed by a sound that made my stomach twist. A wet, choking gasp. I set my noodles down and crept to the peephole. The hallway light flickered, buzzing like an angry bee. In its glow, I saw 2 figures. A tall man in a black hoodie had another man pinned against the wall. A guy I'd seen around the building, maybe late 20s, always carrying a backpack. The man against the wall whimpered, "Please, I swear I'll pay you." The guy in the hoodie raised his arm. At first I thought he was going to punch him, but then something silver in his hand caught the flickering light. A knife. My heart pounded in my throat. Before I could think to back away, the hoodie man plunged the knife forward. Twice. The sound was worse than the sight. A dull, wet thump, then a gasp that cut off mid-breath. The victim slid down the wall, leaving a dark streak on the peeling paint. He collapsed on the landing right across from our doormat. The man in the hoodie crouched, rifled through the victim's pockets, muttering something like, "Should have paid the 15, man. Should have paid it." I stumbled back from the door, my breath loud in my own ears. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, whispering as if the killer could hear me through the door. While I gave the dispatcher our address, I heard footsteps retreating down the hall, slow and deliberate. Then the downstairs door creaked and slammed. Silence followed. I stayed frozen by the couch, eyes on the door, until the first wail of sirens cut through the night. The cops arrived within minutes, lights flashing blue against the window blinds. I cracked the door only after they shouted that it was safe. The victim was still breathing when they got there, but barely. Paramedics carried him down the stairs. Later, I'd find out he died before they reached the hospital, all for $15. The hallway outside our apartment stayed sealed off with yellow tape until morning. Neighbors peeked out of doors with pale faces, whispering. I never saw the man in the hoodie again. The police questioned everyone, took my statement, asked for a description. Tall, maybe 6'2", black hoodie, gray sweatpants, sneakers, but no arrest was ever made. For weeks after, I kept hearing those words at night, in the dark. Should have paid the 15. The echo of the knife hitting flesh haunted me more than the sight. Eli and I moved out by spring. We left behind a hallway stain that no one managed to scrub away completely. Sometimes, walking past strangers arguing over small debts, I remember that night. How fragile the line is between a petty grudge and a killing. $15 isn't much, but it was enough to spill blood on the hallway floor outside 2B. I moved out after a fight with my parents that summer. It wasn't dramatic, just a slow-burning argument about money, my job, and how little I shared with them. My dad called me a stranger in my own house. My mom said I was tossing away the life they'd planned. I said things I regret, packed a laundry basket with clothes, grabbed my laptop, and left before sunset. I drove for hours, windows down, warm air blowing, a sinkhole in my stomach. A college friend heard I needed a place. He knew a guy, Tom, who needed a roommate. Travels a lot for work, he said. Chill. You'll barely see him. That suited me. I wanted quiet space to cool off and a chance to prove I could stand on my own. I met Tom at a coffee shop near the house. He was tall, buzz-cut, clean clothes with a quick smile that faded fast. The place was a narrow two-bedroom in an older neighborhood. Wood floors, high ceilings, a long hallway. The kitchen opened to a small porch, the yard sloping to a vine-choked fence. It smelled of dust and dish soap. Tom listed the rent, utilities, and said he'd be gone for a week after I moved in. He worked contracts out of state, odd hours. We signed a simple lease he printed at the library. The landlord was just a name in a nearby mailbox. I moved in with 2 duffels and a box of books. I bought a cheap bed frame that creaked, a used dresser, and a lamp with a crooked shade. My mom's chipped ceramic leaf dish held my keys and wallet. I kept my phone on silent out of pride. The first week alone was what I needed. I worked, cooked simple meals, wiped counters, played music low. I started running again. Everything had a place. I told myself I'd made the right choice. Then small things felt off. The front door lock was stubborn. You had to pull the door slightly to turn the key. I mastered it by day 2. But on day 5, the lock turned too easily, the door loose. I blamed humid weather and bought a new deadbolt, installing it myself, half proud, half wary. At night, the hallway carried sounds. A drip, a tick, the house settling. One faint noise stood out, soft scuffs, like socked feet on floorboards. I traced it to Tom's door, standing in the dark with my phone's light aimed at the crack below. The house breathed. I heard nothing more. I told myself it was the air vent. I laughed a single breath. When Tom returned, he was in and out, quick showers, laundry, sleep. He talked about airports and bad clients. He was easy to live with, not messy or loud. He left again 2 days later. This time the quiet felt thin, stretched tight. One morning my keys weren't in the dish but on the kitchen counter. I couldn't recall moving them. Maybe I was tired carrying groceries. I returned them to the dish and vowed to be careful. 2 nights later, a book on my nightstand was off. I always left it face down, receipt bookmark poking out. I woke to it shifted closer to the lamp, receipt tucked deeper. It was so slight I doubted my memory. I told myself I bumped it. I told myself it was nothing. A week later, I woke before dawn, certain I'd dreamed someone in the hallway. The feeling clung. I opened my door slowly. Street light striped the floor through the blinds. Tom's door was shut. No sound. My heart slowed. I drank water, went back to bed, lay awake until my alarm. When Tom returned, he looked drained, carrying a small bag. Over breakfast, he said something that stuck. "If you hear anything from my room when I'm gone, don't worry. My friend stays over sometimes." I kept my face neutral. "Friend." He smiled thinly. "Yeah, sometimes. No big deal." He changed the topic fast. He left that afternoon. That night, I stood in the hallway staring at his door. Sometimes bothered me. No schedule. A stranger in my house without warning. I messaged my college friend. He said Tom was private, always paid rent. Not to worry. I bought a motion sensor camera, small and simple, sending alerts to my phone. I felt odd unboxing it, but mounted it on a living room shelf, angled to see the hallway, both doors. The first 3 nights, nothing. On the 4th, at 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. The video showed an empty hallway, streetlight stripes on wood. Then the camera adjusted focus. From Tom's door, a shadow slid out. Human-shaped, shoulders, head leaning forward. It stood facing my door, still for over a minute. Then it stepped back. The door closed without a visible hand. I watched the clip 4 times. Lights on, pulse loud in my ears. I wanted to check the hallway, but didn't. I wanted to call Tom, call my parents, but didn't. I stayed awake until dawn. In the morning, I texted Tom. "Your friend was here last night. Just checking." Hours later, he replied, "Yeah, sometimes he crashes. He's cool. No name. Noe palegi." Anger and fear tangled in my chest. I changed my routine, kept the keys in my pocket, slid a chair under my bedroom doorknob at night, taped a thin strip across my door's crack near the floor, checking it daily. I noticed the house differently. A hallway ceiling hatch led to the attic crawlspace. I'd ignored it before. Now, standing beneath it, I saw finger smudges on the dusty panel. I climbed a ladder, felt cool air leaking through, but didn't open it. I put the ladder away. 2 nights later, another camera alert woke me at 5 a.m. The shadow stood in Tom's doorway again, steady, watching. The stillness unnerved me most. I called my friend, said I wasn't comfortable with someone here when Tom was gone. He suggested talking to Tom, setting boundaries, getting a lock. I bought a stronger lock for my room. At 2:40 a.m., another alert. The shadow was back, faintly catching streetlight. Felt like it was watching, though that made no sense. My lock held. The tape didn't break. I called Tom in the morning. "I can't have a stranger in the house at night," I said. "He's not a stranger to me," Tom replied, voice sharp. "He stays sometimes. Doesn't bother anything. He stands in your doorway, watching the hall," I said. Tom laughed flat. "You're scaring yourself with that camera. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk. It's fine." The next day dragged. When Tom arrived, I felt relief and anger. I demanded answers. He leaned on the counter, eyes tired. "Sometimes a friend crashes. He's between places. He uses my room. That's it. What's his name? I asked. He stared until the question felt strange. Not your problem, he said. He's gone. Chill. That night, with Tom home, I slept better. And worse. Better for not being alone, worse for what we didn't say. The camera showed nothing. In the morning, Tom left early. I cleaned to take control, dishes, rugs, baseboards. I paused at Tom's slightly open door. I knocked, pushed it open. His room was plain, dresser, chair with a jacket, blinds shut. The air was stale. I swept under the window, then saw something under the bed. A dark edge. I lifted the bed skirt. My throat dried. A rolled sleeping bag was strapped tightly against the wall. Beside it, a half-unzipped duffel held clothes. On top, a knife, black-handled, no sheath, not for cooking. I didn't touch it. I left, closing the door to its original angle, hands shaking. I texted Tom, "We need to talk now." No reply. 20 minutes passed. He came in fast, eyes on me. "What did you do in my room?" he asked, too calm. "I cleaned," I said. "Found a sleeping bag and a knife under your bed." He stared, then smiled tightly. "You shouldn't be in my room." "We agreed on safety," I said. "This isn't safe." He stepped closer, breath sour. "My friend's got a hard life. He needs a place. He keeps things there." "Who is he?" I asked. "Don't worry about it," he said. I packed a bag, called the landlord about the lease, texted my friend that I was leaving for a few days. Tom paced, drawers opening in his room, the bed frame scraping. That night, I sat with the chair under my doorknob, lock turned, backpack ready. At 2 a.m., Tom's door opened and closed. At 2:31 a.m., my phone buzzed. A second sensor above my door showed motion spikes. Soft steps past my door, paused, then continued. The front door opened slowly and shut. I waited 30 minutes, cracked my door. The hallway was empty. From the front window, I saw parked cars, an empty sidewalk, a cat crossing. No one. In the morning, I left for a motel, paying for 7 nights. I slept with my bag against the door, TV on low. On the 3rd day, I returned at noon for the mail. Tom was gone. The house was hot. I checked his door, knocked and entered. The bed skirt was gone. No sleeping bag. No duffel. No knife. A spare key with a red plastic top sat on the dresser, scratched. Not ours. I didn't touch it. I backed out. I changed the front door lock again and sent Tom a photo. He replied, "Cool." I asked if his friend would return. No answer. That night, I thought of the shadow's calm. Calm doesn't mean safe. Calm can mean practiced. I broke the lease with the landlord's help and my friend's support, costing money and pride. Tom didn't fight it. Texting, "No hard feelings." I left the camera in its box, a reminder I might need it again. The lesson is small. Ask questions. Trust a lock's feel, a book's shift, keys misplaced. If your house feels different, believe it. If you find a sleeping bag and a knife under a bed, you didn't find the start. You found the middle.